Okay, here we are. Mike, welcome to the Elemental Awakening Show. How you doing, brother?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Greetings from Spain.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so me and Mike have been Facebook friends for a while, for those of you tuning in, and I was recently on a trip to Spain, and I reached out to a bunch of people in the area to see who was around and who wanted to connect, and I ended up getting to spend about a day and a half with Mike, really getting to know him, and I was like, wow, this is a really interesting guy, interesting story. He's been in the alternative media space for how many years now?
9 years,
Nine
more or less.
years.
Yeah.
Founded a really cool page called True Theory, which I'll get him to share a bit more about. And we really had some really interesting conversations. So I thought it'd be a really cool idea to invite him onto this podcast. And if you're new to this podcast, it's, really about people that I find super interesting. We can talk about anything from business, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, relationships, science, technology, spirituality, meditation, you name it. So, Mike, tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your story, and just take it from there. And I'll pop in some questions where I feel fit.
Yeah, sure. So for the last 9 years, I've been behind the scenes running this website called True Theory. It's called truetheory.com. And we've been going through different changes over the years. We started with content that was more like you could say activism, or pointing out things, what's wrong in the world and all these crazy things happening. But over the years, I think it's kind of, while my personal development was shifting and I became interested in different things, so that started also being reflected on what's being shared on the website and what's being published. So we currently produce at least 100 articles a month. We produce some original content. We reach probably 2 million people a month in terms of traffic or more. And currently, the focus is more on personal development, positive news. I think there is a lack of inspiring stories on the web.
Interesting. I see a lot of these pages moving, like they started a lot of them in that same direction and then started moving into like more positive, just realizing that, spreading more fear, negativity is not helping. It's, maybe some people are waking up a bit, but it's not really helping change things.
I mean, I think, you need to be aware of the problems in the world. Someone has to do this part, but also you need to show people that there are solutions, that there is good going on, to inspire people to start doing the same things. Because I hear people constantly talking about how they hate media because it's so negative. And there is actually a theory that, through our evolution, we're basically wired to look for bad news, because when you're living in savannah, you are in danger every day. So you kind of naturally pay attention to negative stuff much more than to positive. And it seems like media is actually trying to monetize on that. So if you look at the proportion of content being shown on media, there's going to be at least 80% of negative stuff. So it's all about terrorism, disasters, and bad things going on in the world. So, but there's also, equally more happening in the positives.
So I got a question. What you think about, so there's one thing to think about bad things happening, but when something bad actually happens, like a hurricane, do you think people feel relief? Because okay, this happened, it's not that bad. Like I sort of weathered the worst case scenario. You know what I mean? Or when they're hearing about bad news, is there something that differentiates from actually just thinking about bad things than seeing it? Or do you think it keeps someone in a perpetual state of just...
It's like watching a movie or whatever. To some extent, it starts to affect you. It creates emotions. Like you either get angry, or you like it, whatever. And if you're bombarded with all the negativity, like a lot of people believe that things are getting worse in the world, and we're living in the worst period in history. I hear it from people all the time, but it's actually, if you look at the data, it's the most safe period in the history. The reason is because you have access to media, and there is only, you know, negativity most of the time. So you are exposed to whatever is happening in the world, and that's what you see all the time.
So I heard a stat once that 70 to 80% of our thoughts are negative. Is that, have you heard of that stat?
Yeah, I'm not sure
Like
what's the
70,000,
percentage.
80,000 thoughts a day, like a big percentage of them. I think it's 70 or 80% are negative. And do you think media just is a reflection of that? So they show 70, 80% of negative stuff because it matches what we're already thinking?
Yeah, I
Maybe
mean,
not intentionally, maybe
it's
intentionally.
interesting idea. I don't really know. Like I heard that it's being done on purpose to get attention, and then, you know, because you pay attention, they get more views and they can monetize it better. So I don't know really if this is exactly true or not, but I'm surprised that, you know, I've noticed a lot of people when they read positive stories and inspiring stories, they really get affected in a positive way, and they also share content, and it really inspires a lot of people to go and do similar things.
Well, I think it's even more important. Yeah, reading the story is a good thing, but when people actually take action and do a good deed or part of something that's a good cause, there's this feeling that sort of it gets evoked within oneself or within someone, and that can be life changing as well. You know what I mean? So like just watching it, like obviously you watch negative, you're not going to go and do something negative because you watch it. You're like, oh man, you're going to get these other types of
Yeah. Or
feelings.
are you gonna start, you know, protesting, and it's
Maybe,
gonna,
yeah, maybe. But when you do something good, there's like a real, definitely response or a change that happens within you, you know? And so this will sort of go to my next question. Then we're going to backtrack a bit. So my next question for you is, have you had like an awakening moment? You know, the show's called Elemental Awakening. Elemental is about being simple and raw. And awakening is usually when you have that sort of moment where you see things differently. Your perspective changes. You're like, you have this aha moment. Any specific thing that comes to mind in your journey of the
um
last 30,
no,
40 years?
actually, I know a lot of people might go through this awakening in an instant moment, maybe have an out of body experience or some near death experience or whatever. In my case, it was just a process that took many years, step by step. Intuitively, I knew there is a lot more to the world. You know, you're being taught by society, by education, by your parents, and I just knew, you know, there's more to life, and I started looking for evidence and investigating. So it was a mixture of research and practice. So I would really go and try things myself and see how they work. So I also knew how things worked, just understood them. So for example, you know, you think about symbols in dreams, in tarot cards, whatever. I just knew that without reading anything about it, that I could interpret them easily. So that was already like pretty much surprising for me. Why, you know, other people don't seem to see these things, and for me it's very obvious. So I was relying on my intuition and going deeper and deeper. So for example, you know, I was reading about chakras and energy healing and qigong and tai chi and chi and prana, all these things, and I started practicing qigong, which is a Chinese form of energy work.
Yeah, qigong. Yeah.
Yeah, and after doing it for 3 years, you know, I started, like, the more I was training, the more I could feel the energy. I started feeling like a flow of energy between my palms. I started feeling chakras. You know, I became more sensitive. So for me, it was just a way to see for myself if this is true or not. And I've done a lot of these over the years, you know.
And so before practicing, did you think, would you consider yourself a skeptical person? Like you don't really believe things at face value until
I
you
mean, initially I was curious, you know. I kind of intuitively I thought it's probably true, but you know, you hear about all these myths and you want to actually validate it. And I think a really good way is actually to try it yourself, not just read about it, you know, because you look at scientists who are very skeptical to a lot of these subjects, and they very rarely do any deep research and almost never actually try it themselves. So that's something, you know, it's hard to really.
I love reading like stories of scientists that do psychedelics for the first time, or especially the atheist scientists that are so science. They'll do like 5-MeO DMT or ayahuasca, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" But I agree, and I always tell people all the time, you know, even when I was going through my process, I was reading all these books, even like spiritual books, like religious texts, whatever. It wasn't until I actually tried practicing some of the concepts that I actually started feeling a difference and realizing. So how long into the Qigong did you actually realize like, oh, wait a minute, there is some energy flowing through me that I have some control over? Did it take
I
you
don't
3 years? 'Cause some
remember.
people
I
will
mean,
try for like 1 month and they'll give up. It's like, oh, this is bullshit. One
yeah,
month,
yeah.
you know?
That's the thing. Like, you know, a lot of people gonna try once or twice, or gonna read one book, or you know, whatever with this, and gonna approach it with a skeptical mind. I think it's very important how you approach it as well, because even if you believe, let's say, in the law of attraction, if your approach is skeptical, you don't believe in something, you actually going to bring the information that resonates with what you put out. So you're going to be bringing like the pieces of information that reflect your views and all these things. So it's kind of like you're closing yourself in the bubble. It's kind of, you know, let's say I was trying to have an out of body experience like 10 years ago. It was like, I've read a couple of books about it, and I was reading amazing stories of people.
Do you read like Robert Monroe?
Yeah, Robert Monroe. I looked into his
This
stuff
was
as
my
well.
first
Monroe.
one. That's what got me interested in out of body, the Robert Monroe stuff. Yeah.
I don't actually remember even like the titles of the books. It was more than 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the techniques was that you fall asleep, you wake up like maybe 4 a.m. when you're in a full, you know, I don't know what's the REM or wherever it is, like you're in a deep sleep, and you try to stay focused on something. So your body falls asleep, and then you hopefully you're gonna have an out of body experience, because it's much easier for you to fall asleep again.
And they say, I think Joe Dispenza's book says that at 4 a.m. is the highest production, I think, of DMT or melatonin, maybe. Yeah, melatonin. And they say melatonin structurally is very close to DMT. It's like missing a couple molecules to create DMT. So, anyways, and were you successful?
Yeah. So like for example, I really had a lot of issues with it. But I was very determined because of all these amazing stories. You know, like people traveling through astral planes, doing all sorts of cool things. So actually, I think after 3 months of trying, I had something which I consider an out-of-body experience. And what they were saying, that you actually get lucid dreams, you can get a normal out-of-body experience, so you kind of see yourself in bed, whatever, and then you might have an out-of-body experience in a dream. And that's kind of seemed more or less like that. But a lot of these things that I was reading about were there. So for example, I found myself in my hometown, you know, there were like a bus stop was flipped like in the mirror, you know, the other way around, which they were describing. Sometimes this is how you see in astral planes.
Wow.
You know, like I was floating like a ghost.
I've had that. I got the floating part a couple times, and when I realized where I was, which was in my house, I automatically like snapped back out of it. Like as soon as like, oh my God, this is happening, the mind was just like couldn't take it.
Yeah, so you know, you get these myths about maybe a ghost floating, and it comes from something, you know, it comes from maybe some people had these experiences. That's
Interesting. I never thought of it that way. Oh, that's
You
very
know,
interesting.
that's what I think. So there are a lot of these things, you know. So during that experience, actually, I was reading that you cannot really harm anyone, and so I decided I'm gonna punch someone in the face. And I saw like we were communicating telepathically or something, you know. It was more like I couldn't hear anything, but I could see a reflection in face. You know, so this person obviously didn't like what I was doing, and it was like was making some strange faces and stuff like that. And then you know, there was like I was reading you have three types of speed. So the first one is you just float. The second, you are more or less like maybe 100 miles an hour or something, like a train or something like that. So I started like moving fast with this second speed to another part of the city that I knew. And then you know, I was reading a lot about sex in astral planes. So I thought like, okay, I want to have sex.
Such a male thing to do, you know.
Punch someone, have sex.
And
And actually, I found myself on a staircase with like a round kind of thing, and there was
spiral
a
staircase.
woman, yeah, spiral, and I could only see that we were kind of flirting, like, you know, I could see her face was like positive, smiling, and we were having some interaction in terms of communication, but I couldn't hear anything. It's just like a telepathic kind of communication. Without, you know, I couldn't understand anything, and I don't actually remember anything afterwards. That was like the only time I had this whole experience.
Interesting. Interesting. Maybe she took advantage of you. Maybe you got like roofied in the astral plane and then you woke up in your real bed. Okay, moving on. So let's go back. So before all this happened, where were you? Like before you opened the website True Theory, like what brought you to that point? Were you always into this stuff? I know you grew up in Eastern Europe, right?
Yeah,
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 like
I grew up
different type of
in Poland.
mentality. Yeah. So explain
Um,
that. How did that journey come about to where to getting to that point of starting True Theory?
I was um, I was doing a lot of research already, and I already became interested in like this thing about being intuitively drawn to things. I was around early 2000, 2002 maybe, and then I started researching. Uh, I'm dyslexic, so I really had a lot of issues with reading. And then maybe around 2004, 2005, you know, the video content was getting more accessible. So like 2006, I think YouTube started. So you know, I was trying to read books, but it was always very slow. And researching and going to events like, for example, Mind, Body, Spirit, which is a big festival in London. I went there first time 2006, I think. So you know, you just go and learn new things, and then you come back home and do your research and all these things. So it was taking years and years and years, and at that time it was just like a hobby thing. And around 2010, it became really easy. You know, WordPress became a thing, and I started thinking like it would be nice to have a website. You know, would
So
give
was
me
your intention
flexibility.
off the bat to like create a business out of it or to like
Yeah,
share
I was thinking about
information?
having something that could, you know, pay my bills, and at the same time, I would do what I like doing, which is researching already.
Mhm.
So I started with a couple of projects. You know, some first attempts, got some domains, wrote some articles, didn't even launch these things, decided like this is not a good idea. And started with another one, was like a failure as well. And it was kind of this process, you know, started with like, I think initially we had just some free documentaries from YouTube, like that was the thing, embedding and categorizing documentaries, and then started exploring with different types of content and growing, learning, and it was like learning from the bottom, like not knowing anything about anything,
So how
zero
important were all
background.
those failures along the way to changing and shifting your position to where you got now?
I mean, failures are necessary,
Is there one
failures.
that stands out that you remember that helped just change the whole process of where you're at?
I think failures are just a part of the process, and you constantly fail, and you have to not be afraid to fail and get rejection or
Make
anything
mistakes.
like that. And I actually learned. I started learning from failures and not taking them as failures. I don't think about them as failures anymore. It's just like I learned this from this situation, and that's it. It helped me to do what I'm doing now. So
Okay, so do you
that's my
think,
approach.
so what do you think it's possible for someone like today, like 2010 was a different time to start a blog or a website. Do you
Yeah,
think it's still possible for someone to start today, something like that, and
yeah.
still be successful?
You know, totally. I think the best, obviously, media is video now. So um, you can see people like Jay Shetty, who appears out of nowhere and in 2 years getting 20 million followers or something, right? So if I think obviously with the video content, you need to have personality, you need to have knowledge, but a lot of these things are something you can improve.
So
So
would that be
also,
your best advice to someone starting out, like take the video route? Like what do you say would you recommend someone, like if you had to tell them one thing if they
I
want to
mean,
start?
the video is like the best medium, and it's definitely everything goes towards video content because it's easier to consume and you can learn about personality and all these things. It's much easier. So it resonates with people. It's much more shareable. If you feel like you can be in front of the camera, and even if you don't, you can improve for sure.
Try, right? You got to give it a shot. Just like the spiritual path, you never know until you actually try, and you'd be
Yeah,
surprised.
exactly.
Even me, the first
Like,
couple of times in front of camera is very awkward.
on every level you can improve.
Mhm.
It's like we are. I wasn't even a speaker at all, but now I can do some of that, and it's fine.
And
So
English is
so
your second
everyone,
language too, so it's really amazing that you speak so
yeah,
well and having that confidence to speak in front of people, right?
yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. It's not my first language. Yeah, I started learning when I was 21.
Ah, amazing, amazing. Um, so yeah, so we talked a bit about some advice for people wanting to start going the video path. Um, so you came along your path, you were interested, you started the blog. It's taken you the last 10 years. Um, so what's next for you? Like where do you see yourself going now? Are you still continuing to grow True Theory, you branching off into new projects?
um, yeah. So for me, there are like these two main things that I always want to try to combine if possible. It's very hard. Like one is to try to run a business, have a platform, um, and it helps you to reach a lot of people. It also can help you to like share your ideas as well. And something that I want to work on as well is to actually share some of my own research and ideas and views, and that's always been on the side because when you try to run a business, and especially small one without any funding, it's very hard. So you have to like you commit like crazy, and then so I'm busy with the business side, and rarely I have time for my own creative part. But I would like to combine these two things and try to have them balanced. So maybe write books, do some documentaries and events as well on the business side, and produce more content. And we're gonna try to raise some funding for True Theory as well to expand and start doing bigger things.
How important do you think creative expression is in overall wellness and optimization? From a human perspective, my opinion is that that's what we're designed to be. We're designed to be creators. So our natural state is to be relaxed and calm and easygoing. And then once we feel that, like our natural sort of propensity is to create something. to build maybe art, music, a project. As an entrepreneur, I feel this need. I want to create more and more. What do you feel like? So you feel this yearning that you're not fulfilling enough of your creative side. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely. You have to think, you got to pay the bills, right? If you want to be a writer or whatever, it might take a couple of years before you're actually going to get any recognition, any money. So in that period, you need to think what you're going to be doing. But at the same time, I learned so much, even in the side, on the side of information and content, not only on the business side. So I was treating it as a kind of a job and ability, like my research time becomes my job, which is a good thing. But I think overall, like, we all have gifts and we all should have opportunity to express these gifts, because everyone is good at something, we have like this unique abilities, and very often we don't have opportunities to express these things because our jobs are completely something else, and that's the problem for me.
So what do you think about like when people advise people to like follow your dreams, go all in, quit your job? Do you think it's dangerous for some people that they can't sort of make ends meet? So I know some people that do that and end up hating their passion because they view it as something that, ruined their life because they quit their job to become, an artist or to make necklaces, and they couldn't make ends meet, but they were doing something they loved. Do you think it's good advice, bad advice?
I think it's complicated on many levels. It depends on many different things, your circumstances, how hard you are willing to work. Are you, smart enough to see when something doesn't make sense or makes sense? It's a bunch of these different things. You probably don't want to quit everything and start trying to maybe build your business out of your passion if you're broke or whatever. You're gonna have to maybe work part-time or work weekends and all these things. So you gotta really think things through, be rational, see what makes sense. But I think currently the internet really gives us so many opportunities that we can do anything online. You can be an expert in any kind of small niche, and just working hard, being smart about it, all these things, right?
Interesting. Yeah, I think a lot of people hear like all of these crazy success stories of someone who followed their passion. But you don't hear about the 9 people that failed, or even that person that followed their passion. Sometimes they have these such unique characteristics or like work ethic that they can really like push through those really tough times. A lot of people feel a bit of adversity and they're like, screw this, I'm out of here, like going back to find a job. And I've been through that myself in my own process where I started doing things I was really passionate about, and that fear came up. It's like, oh, I should just go back, get a job, go back to school, all these things that I know I don't want. But this fear mechanism comes in and it's just like, hey, go back to safety and security rather than following your passion and going through this painful process of growing.
The thing is, like, starting something on your own is going to be very challenging. It's like people prefer security, like having a paycheck and paid holidays and all these things. That's why not many people go in the other path. But and another thing is, once you're gonna be facing challenges all the time. It's just a natural thing. So you have to get used to it, and you always have to think there are problems, and you gotta solve these problems. And I see people who maybe want to try some business or something, and they're gonna face first challenge, and then they quit, and it's kind of like, it's nothing. You're gonna have to go through hundreds of these or thousands of these over the years, and if you're not willing to do these kind of things, then maybe it's not for you. Maybe you're gonna be like really draining yourself. You have to be stable in order to face these challenges. Like not take them that seriously. Like
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's ask some random questions now. We talked a bit about your story, about some of the things you do. In regards to health, I consider you a pretty healthy guy. What's like your number one thing in your routine that you think is the most important when it comes to like health, wellness? Could be exercise, biohacking. Is there one thing that for you is like most important?
I have this meditation technique that I've been using for many years already. It's we can maybe add the link somewhere
Okay,
to the
we'll definitely add the
description.
link.
And it's it's a guided meditation that is like the grounding meditation. You visualize this white light going from the universe through like the top of your head all the way to the ground. And you don't have to do the guided version. You can, once you learn it, you can just do it straight away. So the idea is that you're in this kind of pillar or ray of white light that is going all the way from the universe through you to the ground. And like with every meditation, might take a couple of weeks before you're gonna actually learn it and get what it's all about. But once you learn it, for me, it's amazing. It refreshes me so much. It's like you just feel like this white light is just like clearing you and clears my mind, everything. It can help with headache.
That's amazing.
And
It
you
sounds
know,
like to me like how I explain like unconditional love or love, how it's our natural state. The highest frequency is love, which would equal also like this white purest light. And really, like my opinion, like love doesn't come from you or out of you. Like it flows through you. It's only when you have all these blocks, pain, traumatic scars, you sort of close off that flow of white light. But when you can sort of focus on reconnecting, allowing it to flow through you, all
yeah,
the
so
possible.
like the normal meditations are all about just silencing your mind, trying to not be attached to thoughts and things like that. But this one has this effect, and on top of that, this white, it's like a grounding thing. You connect the root chakra with the earth, and this one, crown one, with the top. So it gives you, it almost like clears your whole body, your energy field, everything. Plus, you become quiet and all these things. So it's really, really good.
Amazing. Amazing. Cool. Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to put a link for that
Sure.
into the podcast. So we'll talk a bit about like entrepreneurship or investing. So if someone gave you $1 million tomorrow and they said you had to invest it in something, what would you invest it in?
In truth theory.
Huh?
In
In
truth
truth theory?
theory.
In what way? In what way? Like building a studio? Like
Yeah, I mean, like the goal for us is to move into events, start doing some conferences, retreats, and also more content. So digital content, video content, interviews, maybe mini documentaries. So we need
use the
to
money
get
to
it.
like build infrastructure, studio,
Yeah,
hire.
definitely want to get a proper office, hire a few extra people, have a studio, things like that. Yeah.
So, and if you had to invest it outside of truth theory, is there like something that you think is a good industry
I would
market?
have to, do some research, but cryptocurrencies probably significant part, maybe half. I don't know. I'm a believer.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a big believer in cryptocurrency too. I know it's really shaky right now as it's establishing itself. I think
yeah,
something new is being birthed, and out of this chaos, something really amazing and
yeah,
liberating, I think, will come through. But that's why it's important now for people who believe to sort of support in whichever way they can. And hopefully, I'm not saying invest all your money in cryptocurrency if that's all you got, but if you have a little bit of extra and you believe in it, it's always good to research some of the projects you believe in and invest a couple of your dollars, because we speak loudest with how we invest our money. I tell people, if you're just investing in mutual funds that are just based on profit, that are just investing in oil companies or companies that are, factory farming and burning down the rainforest, like you're contributing to that energy. If you really choose where your money goes, you stop that flow of money to them, then we can put it into places that we go. A lot of people will protest against these things, but then they'll invest in a fund. And I think that's the problem with capitalism. They care about profit, and it's not, sometimes not even done intentionally. Like a CEO's
yeah,
job is to keep his job based on profit. and they have to appease the shareholders. They don't care about the regular population. It's just keep my job, make the shareholders happy, whatever we got to do in the process. I know there are some companies changing that, but I think it's super important to have that awareness.
No, cryptocurrencies are, I think they're a kind of competition to banks. So that's why it's something that it gives people power over money. Banks can, because they don't have competition, they can charge whatever fees they want, and now there's you need competition in order to have better outcomes for normal people. And some cryptocurrencies allow people without access to banks or anything, just having internet and their phones to send money with very little fees. It's like every new technology takes maybe a couple of years to get mature and get mainstream adoption, and I think this is what we are seeing slowly with crypto now.
Amazing. So you just primed my next question. What's your favorite type of like app or technology that you feel really helps improve your everyday life?
I mean, because like I said, I'm dyslexic, so I always had problems with the reading, and I discovered something called Audible.
It's interesting. A dyslexic has a WordPress blog with 100 articles a month. Is it just hard to read, or writing as well?
No, I mean both. But
that's amazing. It's an amazing feat.
Working on very hard over the years.
So if you're anyone out there that feels like you're limited by anything, anything is possible. Don't use your limitation as like an excuse.
Still reading long stuff like books, it takes ages. So I switched completely to listening, and I think it's great. I just have walks, go to the park or do something, and I listen to books all the time or podcasts.
Amazing.
And I think Audible is like probably the nicest thing I discovered for myself.
Okay, so what's your number one recommendation on Audible right now? Would you tell people to listen to?
It depends. I like biographies sometimes because.
What was the most impactful one to you? What would you find really impactful?
Probably the one about the story of Elon Musk. I don't remember what's the title, but it's the only main biography. I think that he's quite inspirational guy. So the story is really interesting because he's actually interviewed hundreds of people around him to get the account of what's going on really. Because if you would just interview him, he could make things up, or he could just hide stuff he doesn't want to share. But it created a full picture, so it's pretty good.
Interesting. And what about podcasts? Any podcast you recommend that you're really into right now, or that you've been into?
It's I just jump for things like my range of interest is really broad, so it kind of recently I was I think it's called Land of Giants or something like that. It's like a series on high tech companies. So there was like a whole series on Amazon, and they interview people. Like it's kind of, some of these things are pretty interesting. Recently, I was listening to something about Putin. Vladimir Putin. It's actually a little bit of a propaganda against him, obviously, because it's done by BBC. But it's still interesting. You can get like a story of something, and they do these kind of podcasts now where you have different episodes and it's all about one topic. They do interviews, so it's like really well made. You can get like a full picture of something. It's again like you can listen to it at any time, by when you wash your dishes or when you drive a car.
Yeah, I'm the same. Even with podcasts, I don't really like subscribe to a single podcast. I look more for guests. Like recently, I listened to like Tony Robbins and Mike Tyson on Mike Tyson's podcast talking about 5-MeO DMT and ayahuasca. And it was super interesting to hear these two guys talking about this topic that I would have never thought either of them would have been. All right, so just wrapping up here. we didn't really get much into psychedelics. Maybe we'll leave that for the next time. Just quick, are you a supporter of psychedelics? I know you guys put a lot of articles on the website that are psychedelic based. I know there's a big renaissance. Obviously, you know that I'm a huge supporter of psychedelics.
Not that many articles maybe, but I definitely, I think psychedelics are overall good, but it's like any tool, it's a powerful tool. So like with fire, you can burn yourself, or you can cook a meal, or with the car, you need to learn how to drive to not crash the car, right? It's the same thing, it's like you need to know what you're doing, what do you take, what are the settings, obviously crucial. And because it's largely illegal market, it's hard to, sometimes you buy something from a shady person and you don't even know if you're taking the right dose and all these things. So you need to do it properly,
I'm curious, what do you see happening in Spain? Because I know when I was there, they were selling these little kits, like mushroom growing kits in like the stores there. Like, is it a big, like, is that just very specific and niche, or is it becoming more popular where people are like growing their own psychedelics? Because I found that very interesting. There's one thing that stood out to me in Barcelona, like grow your own mushroom kits.
I don't know. I mean, like the thing is, different regions, I think they have slightly different laws. So I'm not 100% sure if this is actually available in the whole of Spain.
Or if they're even legal where they're selling them.
Barcelona is Catalonia, which is almost like a separate state, kind of. They became independent, but not really. I mean, like they voted to become independent, but before anything's going to change, it's going to take a long time. So you don't really hear a lot of these things. I'm not so much into like this stuff here. I know there are like kind of dispensaries or coffee shops for weed and things like that. But yeah, you don't see it. It's just something that was probably happening, and now it's happening a little bit differently. It still happens in a similar levels. It's like,
gotcha,
like something like that, I guess.
In my opinion, it's good to see something is happening. So it means that people are being more open-minded to like, marijuana, which again is a good tool, but shouldn't be used every single day. Now that there's mushrooms are starting to show up, I think it's going to be also a good tool, but also needs to be done responsibly. So it's interesting to see that it's actually coming out into the mainstream rather than, being hidden away.
It's these things are tools, and you, like with everything, you can get addicted. Maybe not with psychedelics, but
abuse them. I don't think addicted, but you can abuse them.
Like you can abuse anything, right? So you need to know what you're doing, how you do these things. And I think if you actually, there is this documentary, I think I sent you, Hoffman's Potion, something like that.
Yeah.
Probably you can find it on YouTube. So it's like a history of LSD. And they show how LSD was legal for the first, 20 years or something. And then because all these hippies in the 60s who were taking LSD, they didn't want to fight the war in Vietnam, and all these things, were protesting about these things. The government made it such a bad substance and, dangerous, like Timothy Leary, the most dangerous person in America, all these things, because it didn't really fit their agenda. You can see it very clearly. You can see from the military propaganda videos how they,
we put a clip in our documentary Psyched Out of one of them.
It's really just fun to watch this stuff. But I mean, this is what most people believe, It's like they think this is like something that you can compare with cocaine, whatever, It's like.
Yeah, I find it interesting too, but now there's this whole new awareness around it. I think the internet's helped, and it's like, it's good and bad, because at the same time it's putting a lot of pressure on like the ayahuasca and like the Amazon and like this tourism thing, and so there's good and bad. So we're all hoping that it's done properly this time with the right research. Because I remember all research was stopped too at the same time when they sort of banned LSD. It was like they just cut everything.
Now there's more and more research being done.
Which is good. Okay, so I guess last couple questions here before we go. What are you most grateful for in your life? End with a little bit of gratitude.
I mean, like, I guess I'm just grateful for, this mission and that I have, which is just to help people to realize who they are, how the world works, and what's, all these things we're doing. So obviously, yeah, that, I would say this is just like this opportunity that I have, and the fact that I'm living in like probably the most interesting period in history, where all these crazy things are happening and all these crazy things are possible. So you take advantage of this time and this opportunity, and then do something with it.
Amazing.
That's my thing.
Grateful. Amazing. Last question. Is there something that I haven't asked you that you wish I would have asked you about?
Uh, um, yeah, I think I was thinking about it, like, like we go through some tough times. Everyone goes through tough times, right? And then, I was going through some difficult period last year, for example, right? And a lot of people are not very well equipped to deal with situations like that. Something happens, maybe, I don't know, maybe your fiance is going to leave you, or maybe you're going to lose the job, or whatever it's going to happen, But you can actually, everything is kind of like, you can look at it differently and not go through it without so much impact. So sometimes you can turn the bad situation into a good situation. So like, for example, like someone we both know who has a CBD business, who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He had some issues, like he was distributing CBD in Canada. And I think like the shops, which were the clients he found, started buying directly from a producer, which was against the contract he had with the producer. Then, the laws changes in Canada changed, and he needed to have a new license, which was like taking ages and all these things. So basically, he was kind of paralyzed on two different fronts with his business. And then he found a way by joining a bigger company that had a license that he could use. They actually helped him to develop his own brand now and all these things. So you can always turn this situation, which is now, it's like it ended up with something much better, right, than initial thing. So instead of like looking at these things as something negative, think about how can you find solutions or turn it into something positive.
Reminds me of the book I just shared with you, The Surrender Experiment. When things happen, not to sort of react, allow,
Yeah,
see
exactly.
what's really happening. Sometimes just a readjusting of your space and the things and the people you deal with, right? Usually the universe is trying to put things in alignment for you. I find it's us that usually is trying to say, no, I don't want that to happen, or I'm going to fight for this. But it's like, if you flow with it most of the time, sometimes you go through that rocky thing, but at the end, it's really trying to align you into a different direction, like totally.
Yeah, this is probably something that we should have like an episode only about this thing.
Yeah, okay.
It's a big topic, and this is something I'm actually more and more interested in over the years, especially recently. So I'm learning how to like see the signals, how sometimes something unfolds in your life and your natural reaction is going to be maybe like fear or rejection. But actually, if you're going to follow, it brings even better outcome than you anticipate. So it's something I'm learning and working with.
It's finding those tools to sort of navigate the storm when it's happening. I think that's the key. Is like when it's that ugly realignment process, it's like, how do you just stay grounded, centered, not react too much, wait it out, be patient. I think those are the keys in my life, where I'm always freaking out. I'm trying to grab something that's going to help me feel better in that instance, which is really not helping me in the long run. But then over time, it's like, okay, I needed to go.
A lot of situations in 1 year from now or 2 years from now, you might look at them as blessings, not as bad things,
Hopefully every single one will realize that the worst part is always a blessing. It's usually when you hold on and resist and you keep going back to that same pattern that you can't break out of it. So you have a similar reoccurrence of a bad experience. It might be with a different partner or a different job or a different boss or whatever. But if you don't change or learn from that difficult experience, you're going to keep on having it until you surrender and move through it. So yeah, no, I agree. We can have a whole episode about that and telling stories and sharing stuff. So let's maybe set that as an intention for a follow-up.
Yeah, I think this is a important subject for a lot of people, and not many people actually really understand it. I noticed that very few people actually totally get this stuff. I'm not even like fully getting it yet, but I think
It's a
like,
process. Yeah. It's
you
part of the
know,
learning. Yeah, it's part of the learning. So I just wanted to say thank you for spending the time here today. I love everything you're doing with True Theory. I wish you all the success. I don't like to say luck because I think, you know, luck is just a word. I think, but like hard work and clear intention and coming from the heart is what creates success. So, and I know you have all those qualities. So I'm here to support you any way that I can. Thanks for your support with the things that I do. I really appreciate that. And yeah, anything you on closing you want to say as we go? Or where people can find
thank
you,
you for this opportunity, and glad that you're moving into more interesting projects. And yeah, no, thanks for everything. And I think for the viewers, just check out truetheory.com regularly. We publish a couple of articles every day. Subscribe on social media. It's either Mike Sygula on different platforms, Instagram, Facebook mainly, or True Theory. And also if you go to truetheory.org, there is a sign-up form where you can join our mailing list, and you're gonna get a free copy of my ebook, which is talking about personal development. So if you want to get it for free, just go to truetheory.org and sign up for our mailing list.
Awesome. Okay, so you heard it, guys. Go check it out. Mike's an awesome guy doing great things. Thank you, Mike. We'll have you on again for sure. Great.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Have an awesome day.
Yeah.